Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Self-Care for Mobile Notaries on the Move. My name is Bill Soroka. I am the founder of NotaryCoach.com and the Sign and Thrive Notary Training Course and Community. Thank you so much for being here on a Monday morning, talking about what's often overlooked for, I think, people in general, but entrepreneurs and solopreneurs specifically. I'm honored to have Dr. Elaine Stewart. Elaine is a naturopathic physician. She's a friend, she's a confidant, and one of my own providers. And she's really dialed in on the importance of self-care and maintaining these vessels that we have. You may have seen some of the emails that I talk about how if our vessel fails, our mission fails. And that legacy that we hope to leave behind, or the goals that we hope to accomplish or who we want to become, are affected if we don't have a body that goes along well with us.
Yeah.
So Dr. Elaine, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everybody. So I'm going to start here with...
I got you. Are we going to...
Down.
Next one?
Next slide. Okay, go. I just want to mention that this information that I'm going to be giving you today is for educational purposes only, and it's not intended to replace the medical advice of your doctor or healthcare provider. So if you have any specific medical condition or you want to try some of the things that we've talked about today, definitely talk to your provider first.
Right.
Okay. So today we're going to talk about what is self-care. We're going to talk about the foundations of health, which are nutrition, exercise, and sleep. We're going to talk about stress and some new thoughts about stress.
Go ahead, sorry.
And we're also going to talk about supportive self-talk. Some of the things we say to ourselves can be pretty destructive. And then we're also going to talk about professional presentation. So as I was preparing for this webinar this morning, I watched some of Bill's videos on work and the business of mobile notaries and signing agents. And some of the things that I heard that were important are positive attitude, high energy, dealing well with errors and getting them corrected.
It's huge for us.
Huge, yeah. And I also heard about the importance of professional presentation. So we're going to touch on all of these today. So let's get started.
All right.
Okay. So what is self-care? These are a couple of quotes. This is a partial quote from Hillel that says, "If I am not for myself, then who will be for me?" Another definition of self-care is it consists of actions that individuals freely and deliberately initiate and perform on their own behalf in maintaining life, health, and well-being. So basically this says that self-care is about responsibility. This means I'm the only person living this life. I'm the only one inhabiting this body, so I'm responsible for it. Sometimes it sounds like self-care is a selfish thing, like I'm taking care of myself before anybody else. But really, it's an act of love. Self-care is what we do every day to take care of ourselves.
Got it.
Okay, so we're going to start with the basics of nutrition and movement and sleep. These three topics are our foundation of health. How you handle each of these will determine whether you're tired, unable to think straight, or dealing with chronic illness, or if you're energetic and you get out of bed with great energy and you're healthy. Because eating is such a personal choice, I'm not going to really talk about specific food plans. There are so many out there. There are so many options, but I do want to give some general guidelines about healthy eating. The first one is to reduce or eliminate fast food and packaged foods. The reason is because there's a lot of preservatives in them. There's a lot of salt, fat, and sugar in them, and that combination can be addictive. I mean, you've heard about Lay's potato chips, you can only eat one. That's because of this particular triad of salt, fat, and sugar. And the fat isn't healthy fat. So try to reduce that as much as you can.
And I think that's probably one of our biggest challenges too, especially when you're just starting out. When you're on the road so much, it's hard to find or even plan ahead sometimes because things happen so quick for us. It's really hard to not eat the fast foods out there. So I think that's something we can all relate to.
Right. And the other thing is, you can go to some place that at least has healthier choices. You know, there are some salads with some grilled chicken and things of that nature that are going to be healthier for you than hamburger and fries, even though they probably taste pretty good. Yeah. So we want to encourage you to eat organic food as much and as often as you can afford to. Sometimes it's really expensive. But really the foods that, if you're going to eat organic, should be fruits and vegetables, because they're the ones that are exposed more to pesticides and fertilizers and things that are not really good for us. So be selective in what you're doing. And if you can't, at least try to eat locally. Work to reduce the amount of red meat that you're eating and increase vegetables. So the more that you can include plant-based meals, so meaning like beans and rice or anything that doesn't really have animal protein in it, those meals tend to be more anti-inflammatory for your body, and they can really help your health. So just, you don't have to cut out red meat completely or animal protein, but just try to increase the number of plant-based meals that you have. I also encourage people to limit the amount of sweets, sugar, and specific carbohydrates like bread, pasta, potatoes, and other starchy foods. The reason is because these particular foods break down to sugar, and sugar is very inflammatory in the body. And most of that inflammation will go to your joints. So your shoulders, your wrists, your hips, and your knees. And so if you're in the car all the time and you're signing and using those joints a lot, that can create some problems there.
I've noticed that too. And this is all, I share the struggle that I have with eating and going to the gym and the struggle. But I've been experimenting with this a lot because energy is so important to me.
Yes.
And if we want to do big things, like I have big goals, I love those days when you're doing 6 to 10 signings. There's a thrill in that. But at the same time, I don't want to end my day in utter exhaustion.
Right.
So I want to still feel good at the end of the day.
Yes.
And this does actually help. It's helped me so much.
Right. The other thing about sugar is that it will dampen your immune system. So if you eat a lot of sugar, you're likely to get sick more often.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Next.
Okay. On the move. So for you folks who are on the move, try to make simple, easy to prepare foods that you can make ahead of time and take with you. And when you buy whole foods at the store and you make it yourself, you know what's in it, you know what ingredients have been used, and you can use your own spices. It doesn't have to be a whole 3-hour meal that you're preparing, but something simple. And then store your food in Pyrex if you can, because it's so great. You can go right from the fridge to the microwave or the freezer to the oven. And you're eliminating some plastic exposure. I would also encourage you to maintain a regular shopping list. We don't think about that very much, but we tend to buy the same things all the time. And it's just easier to keep a list so that you're not reinventing the wheel, especially at the grocery store. And another suggestion is to try to do your cooking like for the week on the weekend. And then that way you have stuff ready. You can just grab it out of the refrigerator and go. It's kind of like stopping at a fast food place, but healthier and cheaper.
Yeah, definitely cheaper.
Okay. So when to eat. Our bodies love routine. It's really important that we try to eat at roughly the same time every day. These regular meals will really help us. When you eat regularly, you'll get hungry right about the time you normally eat, and you'll be full after you eat. So your body will tell you when to eat. Now, the question is, do we eat 3 meals or 6 small meals, or some people graze all day long? And you have to really do what works for you. As a physician, I really encourage people to do 3 meals a day, just because it works for our daily school and work life. Everything's kind of created around breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it's easy to kind of follow that pattern. The other thing is, when we're eating, we want to think about eating our first meal, breakfast, like a king, and our middle meal like a queen, and our last meal like a pauper. So your calorie intake is high at the top of the day because you need calories. You don't need all that extra energy at night. Now, timing is important, and I really encourage you, as you're eating, think about your last meal of the day should be at least 2 hours before, and more if you can. 4 hours is probably better. 4 hours before bed. Your body will thank you for not going to bed on a full stomach. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the sleep part. Also, try not to go too long without eating. The problem with that is you get hungry, you get angry,
Cranky,
hangry.
Yeah.
It's very hard to deal with stress, and your energy starts to drop. And the other thing is, when people skip meals or they wait too long, they tend to overeat, and then you really feel kind of bad.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Okay.
Good. I'm glad we're going to talk about this too, because we already see some comments coming up in the chat window about how difficult it is to eat a salad in the car. Trust me, I've tried it. And especially if you don't have time to pull over, it's difficult to do.
Right.
And the timing, sometimes you have a signing at the normal time that you eat. You can't always do it. You just do the best you can with what you've got, guys. You make adjustments.
Right.
And I think flexibility has got to be the key to
everything. It is. It really is. And the best you can, if you can try to keep your meals as close to your regular eating patterns, that's the best. But of course, obviously that can't always work. But you might want to keep some snacks with you, maybe some Kind bars, or even hard-boiled eggs, or something that's quick and easy to carry with you, that you can just eat relatively quickly. Now, where people eat, and I'm not talking obviously at home, some people don't sit down to eat. They'll eat at the kitchen sink. They might eat in front of the television. When you're at work, if you're working at a desk, a lot of times people will stay at their desk and eat, right? Yeah. And the problem with this is that, first of all, when we're working during the day, we're in kind of sympathetic nervous system mode, which means it's kind of like fight or flight. There's a lot going on. Your body's not in a position to eat and digest. So what we want to do at these times is at least sit down at a table and take a few breaths before you eat, just to shift over into that parasympathetic state, which is your rest and digest. So that allows your GI tract to relax a little bit and get the food in. Sometimes if you're eating in front of the TV and there's a lot of action going on, I have done it sometimes, not all the time, but if there's a lot of action, I start eating really fast, and then at the end of the show, I'm like, well, did I even eat? What did I eat? When you're on the move, you're going to need to eat in your car. Now, if it's at all possible, I know it's not always, but if it's at all possible, pull over and stop to eat. This gives you a chance to relax a little bit, take a couple of deep breaths, just allow yourself to rest and get into that rest and digest. And if you can, eat slowly. Put your fork down in between your food and chew well. We'll talk a little more about that. I know it. Yeah, and I know. And I realize that I'm probably preaching to the choir here. It's probably not possible, but as best as you can.
Yeah, it's a best practice.
It's a best practice.
And you adjust.
Right. And you're not going to be able to do, just like all self-care, right? We're not going to be able to be perfect at it all the time.
Perfection doesn't exist.
Right. So, but the more we're consistent with what we're trying to do, the better off you'll be.
I love that. And then I love the suggestions that you guys are making in the chat window as well. Trader Joe's, Sprouts, they do have some excellent choices on the road. Also, there are some now fast food places like Salad and Go, Mad Greens. And Salad and Go is a favorite of mine. And I think they're just here in Arizona, guys. But they have salads, they have wraps, so you can get like a burrito salad that you can eat on the road. But they're even eliminating the wraps because the negative health benefits of tortillas too. Yes. So they're taking those away. So sometimes we might just have the only option is pulling over to eat our salad, because that is difficult to do, and I have tried it. But
Right.
it's a challenge.
Right. And we don't want to make a mess on our clothes. Okay.
I wear half the food I eat. So.
Okay. And so the other question about food is, why do we eat? Well, we eat for many reasons, and really only sometimes it's because we're hungry. People do have, we eat emotionally. Whenever we feel upset or scared or a lot of strong emotion, sometimes people will deal with that by eating, even though it might make us feel good at the moment. It probably doesn't really it doesn't really affect the reason that you're feeling emotional in the first place. The other one is feeling empty inside. So sometimes when people don't feel loved, or they don't feel cared about, or there's this kind of gap you're feeling inside, we try to fill it with food, but of course that doesn't really do the job, because that's not really causing the problem. So just really trying to, when you find yourself kind of automatically going to food that way, maybe just take a couple of breaths and ask the question, am I actually hungry? Is this really the problem?
A lot of it too is just awareness of that. Asking that question changes a lot of things.
Right.
So it's just not that unconscious eating. It's like, oh, I just ate. And then you track it back. You're like, well, I just got that call from that site. Like, I've had a client who's pissed off because there's something that someone on the team missed. And the first thing I want to do, I'm like, well, there's a Dairy Queen on the way to the office,
Right.
So you try to soothe and comfort with that food. But as soon as I realize, oh, I'm just upset, I can make a different choice.
Yeah. And then sometimes people will eat because of lack of sleep. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the sleep part. Definitely hormonal imbalances can cause changes in how we eat. And then the other one is being dehydrated. And I will say that being dehydrated, at least here in Arizona, I mean, we really are dehydrated all the time. And when you start to feel thirsty, it's already kind of too late. So, and the other thing is that a lot of times we eat when we're not hungry, but we're thirsty. So it can feel the same way. So I really encourage people to stop, drink some water, and wait and see, because usually that's going to take care of the issue. But then you can ask yourself, are you really hungry? Am I really hungry? So then, yes, you can choose to eat or not. So,
Huge.
Okay. So how do people eat? A lot of people that, at least that I have been around, eat very fast. So it takes 20 minutes for our bodies to let our brains know that we're full. Okay. So if you eat very fast, like in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, people still feel hungry because their brain hasn't gotten the message yet. So keep eating, right? And so by the time that 20 minutes comes up, you're like, oh my God, now you're really full. So really try to eat slowly, as slowly as you can. Again, about 20 minutes. I realize that when you're on the road, that probably isn't going to be helpful, but when you're at home, you can do that when you're not signing. And eating mindlessly, again, doing something else and eating. We really lose track of how much we're eating, and even the fact that we did eat. I mean, there are times when, people have eaten, so they've been doing so many things. They're like, oh, I feel hungry, I haven't eaten yet. And they just finished like half an hour or an hour ago. So it's very important to be mindful. And then not chewing. This is a big deal because a lot of people, especially when they eat fast, they'll put some food in their mouth and they chew a couple of times and then they swallow it down. Now, unfortunately, our stomachs don't have any teeth. Okay, that's probably a good thing.
That's probably a great thing.
But the first step in digestion is to actually put food into your mouth and tear it up into smaller pieces and then mix it with saliva that has enzymes in it that can start the digestive process. So trying to really eat small pieces of food, put your fork down in between bites, chew very well, and then swallow. You'll feel a lot better. Your GI tract will act better, will feel better, be able to do its job better if you're not getting big chunks of food in your stomach, because your body's like, what do I do with this? You know what it is? So it's got to sit there for a long time doing what it, trying to break it down.
And that's what helps take away your energy throughout the day.
Exactly, because all your energy is internal, and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to take a nap. So I really encourage people to eat lightly on the road. It's hard to eat a really big, heavy meal and then have energy and focus and concentration to do your work. So always take a few breaths before you eat, and just try to eat as slowly as possible. Okay, now I use the word movement here because exercise, that word exercise scares people, but exercise or movement is the most important thing that we can do for our bodies. Our bodies were made to move. We were not made to sit for hours on end at a desk or in a car, or even stand for long periods of time. We evolved to move. So we don't, because our modern life doesn't really work that way much anymore. We have to do everything we can to keep our bodies moving. And there are so many benefits to exercise. I mean, it's almost a panacea, meaning it solves almost all of our problems. I mean, not really, but it contributes to heart health and digestive health, brain health, cardiovascular health, hormone health, mental health, and emotional health.
Yeah, moods, right. It really helps the mood.
It releases endorphins that contribute to a feeling of well-being. And when you are eating well and you're exercising and taking care of your body, you'll be surprised how much better you feel. And you're much more able to handle some of the stress that comes along with this job or really any other.
I think that's really hard to measure too for people, because you don't feel it until it's happening, right? But you react differently to a stressful situation because you have been working out.
Right.
Doing that.
Well, because it's a subtle change over time. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you have to kind of put a note for yourself and, track it somehow. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It also, of course, helps with sleep because you're tired. It helps reduce inflammation and reduces obesity and diabetes and arthritis and osteoporosis and many other chronic illnesses. I mean, just eating better and doing exercise can really make a big difference in those particular illnesses.
Definitely. And guys, if those on the call, we are going to have a live Q&A after the slide presentation. So if you do have some questions, feel free to write them down, or you can type them into the chat window and we'll come back to them as best we can to at the end.
Okay. All right. So there's lots of ways to get exercise or movement into your daily routine. We already know things like taking the stairs, parking further away from your destination, getting up from your desk at work and, walking around, going to the restroom, going to get some water, even going outside during lunch. So these are ways that this all counts as exercise. And don't forget the wonderful housekeeping duties, right? So vacuuming, making beds, doing laundry, sweeping, all of that is movement. It all counts as exercise. We don't see it as exercise because, we have to do it anyway, and we don't go to a gym to do it, but it all adds up. Now, if you haven't moved your body for a while, definitely start with a checkup with your physician, and then start slow. So sometimes what I have seen people do is they'll go to a gym or they'll go somewhere and they'll jump in and they'll get on the treadmill and they'll go and they'll feel great. And they go, wow, this feels really good. I'm going to keep going. So, but the next day they're like so sore they can't move. And sometimes it's easy to get hurt when you're not in good shape. So definitely start slow. You can start with walking, one of the very best exercises out there, and start slow. Like go out for 10 minutes, 5 minutes out, 5 minutes back, and then keep increasing it until you're doing, 30 minutes or so a day.
Yeah.
And the more you do, the better and stronger you feel. Another important thing that you can do for yourself is stretch. So stretching can and should be done several times a day. It improves your range of motion, your flexibility around your joints, your balance. It helps improve posture and more. And there are lots of stretches that you can do during the day, easy stretches. Get a good book, one that fits with you, or watch YouTube videos. I do have a book that I like. I just found it at Costco. It's called Stretching to Stay Young. What I like about it is the first half of the book goes through each stretch. And then the second half of the book will, it has little workouts like traveling, morning routine, where you're watching TV after you've been on a long phone call, and so on. So it's a great book. It's just one of many out there.
I've heard from many people that stretching is the greatest gift your younger self could give your older self.
Yes, because as we get older, we tend to get more rigid and less flexible, especially if we're not moving. And sometimes that happens with the thinking too. But definitely stretching is so important, and you're absolutely right. The more you do it throughout your life, the better off you are. And so again, this should be a gentle stretch. You don't want to you're not trying to really stretch out cold muscles, so it's really gentle. And you want to stretch from your head to your toes.
Love it.
Now, I don't know how many of you have heard of myofascial release. The myofascia is like a skin that is around muscle bundles in your body. And it doesn't stretch very much, but because it holds muscles in place, but you want to release that a little bit so the muscles can stretch a little more. So people do that with a foam roller. And if you don't know what that is, you can go online and check. A foam roller, or they have hard balls, like the size of tennis balls. Tennis balls are a little too soft for this, so sometimes they use like cross balls and things like that. And you can put it in various areas where you have some pain and you roll on it. And let me just tell you that when you first start using foam rollers or these balls, it hurts badly. So go easy with it and go gentle, and just know that the more you do it, the better it'll be. And you will notice that when you use these things and you stand up, like you do on one side and not the other, you stand up, you will feel more stretched out and flexible on one side. So you can also use stretchy bands, yoga and Pilates. Those are things you can get online. You can look at videos online. There's, of course, swimming and dancing. There's lots of different ways to exercise. And there's group training, which also is a great option. And then there's just online videos for exercise. And one that I recommend is called Fitness Blender. It's really great. It has all different kinds of exercise routines, like for strength and for cardiovascular and for all this other stuff. And they're all different times. So some of them are 20 minutes, some of them are longer, shorter. And they actually do the exercises with you. So they don't just show you how to do it and then say, okay, now you do this for 20 minutes. They do it with you. So you have a sense of pacing and timing and all of that. It's a great option.
That's great.
So on the move, I would just say try to stretch at every possibility, especially, you've been driving, you're kind of folded up. Even when you get to your destination, if you can just stand up and, stretch your chest and your arms and stuff, you'll just feel better.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. Yeah, because one of the practices that I did, and this was a lesson that I learned from Brendan Burchard. He's big on every 50 minutes, 50. It's designed for people who are sitting at a desk, right? But every 50 minutes, get up and move. Walk to the kitchen, get a fresh glass of water, whatever it is. Do something. And he's even got some exercises. I had to adapt that for my business. My car is my office. So every time I'm driving, if I've got a long drive ahead of me and it's over an hour long, I'll make a stop. Sometimes I don't even need anything at a gas station, or just pull off for a sunrise or a sunset picture or whatever, and do a little bit of exercise to get up and get the blood pumping through my legs.
Yes.
And Lori asked a really good question. Do you mind if I ask that right now?
Go ahead.
She just said, is there any suggestions about how to actually sit in a car or at a desk chair that enhances posture or energy?
Well, of course, the best way is to make sure that you have good lumbar support so that you're sitting up. And that means shoulders back and relaxed. And so that's one of the benefits of doing like Pilates, because it really strengthens your core. So you need your core and your back to hold you up. And because we have a weak core, most of us, all that pressure goes on your back. So the more that you can do anything for your core, exercises on a pretty regular basis, it will make a big difference for you. But any kind of lumbar support and sitting up straight. And if you're not used to doing it, it's hard to do. Like you're going, yeah, this is good. And then pretty soon you find yourself, you're back like that.
By the end of the day.
Yeah. So, but even having just some sort of a support in your back, in your low back can help a lot.
Yeah. And then, so some cars come with lumbar support, and then sometimes they make those cushions for your chair that are designed for back support and things like that you can buy.
Now, I just want to say one more thing.
Yeah.
When you stop your car, really you can do so much. You can stretch your quads, you can bend over and stretch your hamstrings, you can use your car to kind of stretch up against, and there are just lots of ways to use your car as a thing, as a place to balance or to do those exercises.
Love it. Okay. Great question, Lori. Thank you.
Sleep. My favorite topic, actually. 80% of Americans are sleep deprived. So we sleep 2 hours less than we did a century ago, and we can thank electricity for that. Getting good restorative sleep can help us with increased energy, better immune function, less weight gain, and better brain health. We're more alert. We're able to concentrate, control our emotions better, and we have generally more pleasant moods. We can handle pressure better when we get enough sleep, and exercise really helps with sleep. But try not to do extensive exercise right before bed.
Learn that the hard way.
Yeah, because then you're like,
then I'm energized and ready to go.
Yeah, you don't want to, and then try to aim for 8 hours. Now, I can tell you that I was probably getting 7.5 hours most of my life. I mean, I'm a good sleeper, but then I started getting 8.5, and I'll tell you, I feel like a new person. It's so amazing. It's such a huge, phenomenal change. And if you can allow yourself to do it on a regular basis, you will see you'll be a new person. I guarantee.
I agree. And, I was the type through most of my 20s and even my 30s, I really believed I was a person who only needed 5 hours of sleep, because I could go to sleep and get 5 hours and wake up and actually be productive. But then the wall hits and it builds up, and then I'm cranky and short-tempered, and I have lack of vision. I can't focus on my vision. When I started prioritizing sleep at 7 hours at minimum, and then shooting for 8 or 9, that's when everything really started to change. I know. Good advice.
Yes.
Good advice. But it really does change, and sometimes it's really hard to see it. Like, I was super stubborn about it too. 5 hours. Everybody's talking about how I need more sleep, and I was like, no, I don't need more sleep. I'm different.
Right.
I'm more special than that. It's that specialness thing. Yeah. But it really has been life-changing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So here are some tips for good sleep. Number 1, sleep in a cold, dark room. We call this good sleep hygiene. That was it. Yeah. Okay. We want to eliminate, reduce, or cover electronics in your room. So some of us have TVs in there and computers and printers and all of that. And at night, in the dark, all those little tiny lights on there light up like a circus. And the last thing you want is any light exposure during sleep, because it shuts off your secretion of melatonin, which is your big sleep hormone.
Yeah.
Okay. If you have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, don't stay in bed and toss and turn. Okay. Get up. Now, this is not when you're going to get up and start going through signing documents and cleaning the house and doing that. No. You're going to turn on a low wattage lamp maybe, and read. Nothing, no crime thing that's going to keep you up and wondering who did it. No television, just something light. Maybe you journal, maybe you pray, maybe you meditate. The idea is that you're helping yourself fall asleep and get more tired so you can go back to bed and sleep. But tossing and turning all night long and constantly looking at the clock, not helping. Okay. The other thing is, again, we talked about food and routine. We also is the same for sleep. Go to bed at night at the same time and get up at the same time every day. And this includes the weekends.
Yeah.
I know most people don't like that I don't want to get up early on Saturday. I want to sleep in. But if you're getting enough sleep and you are in that routine, you'll be tired at the time you usually go to bed, and you'll wake right up. You might not even need an alarm.
That's so true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether you want to or not.
Whether you want to or not.
Yeah, you're waking up.
Right. Now, here's the other thing that I have seen people do. I want you to set your alarm for the actual time that you want to get up. No hitting the snooze button. And I have seen a lot of my patients have, if they have to get up at 6, they set their alarm for 5:30. I don't know why. So they can feel like they're getting more sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But really, you're woken up and you're not going to sleep 30 minutes. You're going to be going, see, I know it's going to come off again, or I know I have to hit the snooze button again. No, if you need to get up at 6, set the alarm for 6 and then get up.
I love that. Hal Elrod talks about that in Miracle Morning, because he says people who don't like waking up in the morning are torturing themselves by hitting snooze. Yes. They don't like waking up, so then they do it every 10 minutes.
Right.
So it doesn't make any sense. So
right.
I like that.
Yeah, advice. Exactly. Now, if you're really having trouble sleeping and you really can't dial it in, like what is causing it, you might consider keeping a sleep diary. This is where you can track what time you go to bed, what time you wake up, what you eat, when you exercise, how much you drink, just water or fluids, alcohol, caffeine consumption, and your pre-sleep ritual, which is really important. Now, for those of you who have children, you probably remember that you didn't chase them around the house, tickling them and giggling them and getting them all excited and wound up, and then put them to bed. No. You put them in the bathtub and you put their jammies on and you read to them. So you're always dialing it down. So you want to look at your own sleep routine. Like you can't, being on the computer or being exposed to all that blue light from your phone and then just shutting it off and going to bed, you have to give your brain time to wind down.
That's really powerful. And anybody who's in part of the morning mastery, you've seen my evening routine as well, which is similar. It's a journal exercise and then a forgiveness exercise too. So it just helps clear the air.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Stress. Is stress bad for you? Well, it's kind of a yes and no. We have been told that stress can kill us. And I guess on some level it can. And certainly if you believe it can, it will. But now we're thinking that that stress is a part of our lives. It's not something that we can just do away with, but we can manage it. And I think understanding stress and what it does for us can really make a big difference in our lives. So when I learned about stress, I learned about fight or flight and rest and digest. So fight or flight is when you're literally running for your life, saber-toothed tiger kind of thing. You're running for your life. It
happens all the time.
Yeah, and, every day. And so you have all this stress, and that stress will help you, right? It focuses your eyes. It shuts off all your wandering thoughts. It focuses your attention. It sharpens your hearing. It enhances your brain function. All of those things are needed in order to save your life. Then we get into this rest and digest, which I mentioned earlier in the talk. This allows us to relax and actually do the functions that you can do relaxing, like eating, having sex, reproducing, all that. When your life is on the line, you're not doing any of that stuff.
That's true.
Right? So we have these two sort of extremes. Now, I'm also learning about these other two responses. This challenge response, which is not as extreme as fight or flight, but close. But the benefits of this is it increases self-confidence, it motivates action, and it helps you learn from the experience that you're having. And then there's this other response called tend and befriend. Now, this response increases courage, it motivates caregiving, and it strengthens your social relationships.
Wow.
Now, there are different hormones that are released in each of these. In the challenge response, it's adrenaline and testosterone and cortisol. In this tend and befriend, it's oxytocin. And oxytocin is, well, most people know it from, in labor and, letdown reflex and all that kind of stuff. But it really does help us feel social towards each other and to take care of each other. And that's really a way for us to get support when we're in these kinds of situations. Okay. So the new thought is to embrace your stress and really appreciate that the sweaty palms and the pounding heart of stress are preparing you for action. It causes your body to release fuel into your system, so in the form of fat and carbohydrate. And all of the things I mentioned before will happen. You're focused. This is really your body supporting you in stress. So when you think about, okay, all of these feelings that feel kind of uncomfortable right now are actually helping me. And when you think about that, when you actually change your idea and belief about stress, that it's actually supporting you and helping you, your body responds differently to it. Yeah.
I love that we're talking about this because, and I think a lot of you can relate to this, especially if we've had some coaching calls right before your first signing. There's this terror about doing your first signing, and we'll talk about, just having that knot in your stomach, sweaty palms, freaking out about it. And we talk about this on those calls too, that shows, number one, that you care about what you're doing,
engaged, right?
And you're into it. And then all of the enhanced focus, all of that really ties in to doing this, doing well at this.
Yes.
And then when you face that stress, when you embrace, as you're saying, instead of turning around and running away, then that's when the magic really starts to happen.
Yes. And there's even more magic.
More magic.
More magic. Okay. So after we've been through a particularly stressful experience, our bodies release hormones that actually help us recover from that stress. And they recover mentally and physically. And these hormones reduce inflammation. They restore the balance to your nervous system. And through this process, our brain is able to connect past stressful experiences and how to handle future stressful experiences. Okay. So this is what we're calling stress inoculation. Okay. It's kind of like a vaccine a little bit, except, yeah, it's like a vaccine. But what happens is you are actually learning from each of your stressful experiences. And the greatest part about it, in my mind, is that you learn you can trust yourself.
I think that's huge.
It's huge.
So that your self-confidence
soars. Goes up. You say, I've been through this before and I can handle it.
I can do it again.
And so each time you do that, you have a little bit less stress, and you feel more confident. It's such a powerful shift in thinking that stress is your friend. Yeah. Now, too much of it we have to deal with. So you want to keep it so it's not so crazy. And that's why we have other tools like breathing and mindfulness and meditation. And those are awesome. I mean, breathing is probably, well, first of all, we all have lungs with us. So always at hand. And because a lot of us spend so much time in the past or the future, and think about that. The past is done. I mean, we can ruminate about it, but it's not going to change. Or the future, where there's all of its what ifs. So you get anxious from that, but you can't take any action there, right? Because this is done and this hasn't happened yet. So taking a breath, 5 breaths, just counting and focusing on your breath will bring you right into the present moment. And this is an opportunity for you to say, okay, is there anything happening? Maybe not. But if there is, you can take action and you can actually do something
about it. Right?
Exactly. So mindfulness, meditation, these are all very important tools to to deal with stress.
Absolutely. And this is, I actually incorporate this into the Sign and Thrive course too. Breathing and meditation has been life altering and business altering for me. So if you don't have a practice, I'd recommend starting that. But the key is just start small. You don't have to do an hour of meditation or 200 breaths, start with one, start with 5,
and really
start with 1 minute of meditation.
Right. And honestly, the breathing can be done anywhere. You can do it while you're driving.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it at a stoplight. You don't have to, you're not closing your eyes and coming away from the world. You're still in the world. You can do it if you're upset because the guy in front of you at the grocery store has, 50 things instead of 15,
Or writing a check.
Or writing a check.
Check.
Who writes a check, right?
Well, and I think that's critical to remember. And what I find with me is if I get frustrated and I'm on the road, and I've been cutting back on sugar, so my frustration level goes up because I have a very short temper right now.
And you're not calming yourself with sugar.
So I'll breathe. And by the time I get to my 10th breath, I forgot why I was even breathing.
Yeah.
So it really is powerful.
Yes, it's very powerful and simple, really simple. Okay, now, so stress. So all the things we've talked about before, being well rested, well fed, and getting daily movement really underlies how you feel all the time. And one suggestion is that when you maybe get to your signing event, do a 3-word check-in with yourself. Okay, so how are you feeling right now? So I might say, I'm anxious, I'm hungry, I'm really nervous. No, I'm angry because the traffic made me late or whatever. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what this does is it's an opportunity to, again, come into the present moment and to really be familiar with what am I feeling right now? And then you can say an affirmation or you can release it and then let it go. Because sometimes we have all this noise going on and we're like kind of anxious and excited and, we don't know quite how to calm down. But if you just do that little check-in, you're like, this is what I can do.
This is what's happening.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I teach an inversion of that too in my course. So it's choose 3 words that represent how you want to show up to this appointment. Okay. So for me, like it changes with every appointment. Like, what do I want to do here? I want to be focused. I want to be inspiring. I want to be engaging or friendly. Having those 3 words going through your head before each appointment, it changes how you show up. My big 3 words for my life in general are, I have them written here on the wall. So it's inspire, real, and kindness, because I want kindness and authenticity and inspiration to be part of my life. So those are the 3 driving forces. And you can change those before every appointment, before every meeting, before every phone call.
Yeah.
However you want to show up.
Exactly. Awesome. And I'm going to get to that too in just a minute. The other thing that you can do is accept that we're all doing the best we can. So sometimes we make a lot of assumptions about what people are thinking or doing or whatever. And because of those judgments that we make, we start to get wound up over it. But if you just accept, okay, this guy's just doing the best he can, we're good to go. Mm-hmm. Also, create boundaries for yourself. What is okay and what is not okay? So how people treat you, what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do. Once you have those, you kind of feel safe. Right? Like, so, okay, I'm not going to go, I can go here, but not here.
Mm-hmm. It's uncomfortable to do that at first because many of us are people pleasers. So we're grown up, like we just say yes to everybody and we take care of everybody. But really the real power comes in knowing your own worth.
Yes.
And knowing and setting those boundaries.
Yes.
That's been a powerful lesson for so many on the call that I know too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, again, if your emotions are running high, you can always just take a minute and take some breaths again. Just really important. Okay. Supportive self-talk. And this is what you were talking about. Sometimes we have, or I should say many of us have what I like to call an itty bitty shitty committee in our minds that are constantly like this.
Itty bitty shitty committee.
An itty bitty shitty committee. Well, I mean, I don't know. It has to be. It's a shitty committee. Most of the time, we're not conscious to what that conversation is. It's an old conversation. And so sometimes, I mean, I know for me, sometimes when words are swirling around in my mind, I don't really understand what the thought is. I just get the feeling. But when I actually sit down, listen to what my body is saying, what my mind is saying, and write it down, it makes all the difference, because now it's out of me. It's out on paper. And I can really ask myself, is this really true about me? Well, it might have been when I was a kid, but it isn't true about me now. So it's just a way to start to change your thinking, right? And then shift out of the negative into the positive. And this is what you were saying, you know, using positive affirmations, any kind of reminders, use Post-it notes to remind yourself that you're not who you used to be.
Or alarms on your phone.
Or alarms on your phone.
Just to remind you how great you are. That
right.
changes your energy. It comes at the right time all the time.
Yes, yes. Yeah. And I always want to say, look for the positive around you. Now, we're wired to look for negativity because, you know, back in the day, we were always scanning the environment for, you know, is there a tiger over there? Is there a mammoth over here? Is there things going on? So we're kind of wired for it, but we can get so bogged down in that negativity. It's really, so if you can start to just think, okay, all right, what is good today? Oh, I woke up, I felt great. My cat was really loving to me this morning. The mountain that I see outside my window looks really beautiful this morning. Just anything and everything. And when you start to do that on a regular basis, it will shift you as well. And of course, the greatest thing is gratitude. And I'm sure most of you know this, but when I am really down in the dumps, I go to gratitude. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my home. I'm grateful for my friends and family and so on. And the more I do that, boy, it really shifts me out.
Totally. You know, I'm an analytical thinker, so I automatically wanted to discount the power of gratitude. And this is several years ago. I'm like, nothing's going to be that powerful. There has to be something to it. And there is science to it. There is science to what it shifts in the brain. But what I've really come to do is I've included gratitude in every aspect of my business. But gratitude and complaining can't exist in the same space. So if I find myself like, this isn't working. Oh, why don't I have documents yet? Or don't they know how busy I am? Then I'm like, you know what? I just shift that. Thank goodness I'm so busy. Thank goodness I have a car that can get me there on time. You know, just that shift has changed everything in your mindset. Yeah. When you're having a bad day, you can shift to a really great day.
Great day.
Yeah.
Great day.
Absolutely.
Okay. And all right. So finally.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about
a word about our wardrobe. Sometimes we buy clothes that are on sale. Sometimes we buy clothes that are trendy, whatever. But really, this work requires a professional look. And we may have to accept the fact that black doesn't really disguise our bodies the way we think it does.
What?
I know. And so what I encourage you to do is to find clothes that fit you well and that you feel comfortable in. And if you can't find clothes that fit exactly right for you, get them altered. And so that it fits really well. And spend as much as you can on good quality clothes that will last. Classic pieces. Get your colors done. You'll be surprised how great you'll feel when you are wearing the right colors.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because that's something I had never heard of before. Get your colors done. What does that mean?
Oh, okay. Well, they used to, let's see, I forget what they called it in the past, but it's where you look at your hair, at your complexion, at your eye color, and they put together colors that enhance that look.
Just bring that out.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay. And what happens then is when you wear the clothes that really are in your color wheel, shall we say, people will look at you and go, wow, you look fabulous today. You look so well rested. They don't go, hey, that's a pretty shirt.
Right.
It's not about the clothes themselves, but it's how you feel. And honestly, I have this book and, I love it. It's called looking good every day. And, oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I was shooting over here. Okay. And I have it on I made some tips for you, but what I love about this book is they have tons of information in here, but they have a chapter on how to make the most of your body. So if you want to look taller, if you want to look shorter, if you want to look thinner, if you want to look heavier, to minimize broad shoulders, narrow shoulders, enhance a small bust, minimize a full bust, so on and so forth. Anyway, it's a great book. It is chock full of information. And she also has a thing on what she calls in capsule wardrobes, meaning, maybe you have 10 pieces that you can alternate into like 90 different outfits. So talk about cost effective.
Yeah, right.
That's really good. And when you look and feel good, you radiate self-confidence.
That's so important for us.
So important.
And important. Guys, there's so many of us that struggle with the way we look for any number of reasons. Maybe we're overweight. Maybe we're underweight. Maybe this is a new career for us and we're used to wearing jeans at a factory, and then all of a sudden we got to enter the workforce and we got to interact with people on a business level, and we don't know how to function that way. This is really powerful.
It's very powerful
that we don't even think about. But when there's something to it, like me, I wear button-down shirts all the time now to client meetings just because it makes me feel like I'm in a business, like I'm a businessman or business person.
Mm-hmm.
So I show up in a different way. When I'm in shorts and flip-flops, I don't even want to talk business. Like I don't even want people to know I'm in business.
Right.
Because it's just a different personality. So I can totally see the power in that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Last slide. Okay. We've covered a lot today. Definitely take whatever works for you. And I would highly encourage you to start slow. Make small changes that you can turn into habits because you want to set yourself up for success. Give yourself the care and consideration you would a child or a pet or a best friend. Be kind and gentle with yourself as you're making life changes. So
I love that.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you so much. All right, guys. So we're going to stop sharing the screen now. I am going to send out to recap some of this. Elaine has created the 40 tips for self-care.
Mm-hmm.
I'll send out the link so you can just download that PDF here in a few minutes after I send out the replay. But for now, let's go ahead and open it up to questions. I'm going to go ahead and it's all right. We did go a little bit long, but now everybody has the ability to unmute themselves. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask Dr. Elaine, now's the time to do so. I will send out her contact information as well if you prefer to have a private conversation. And we did get some of those questions. So if there's anything else, feel free to ask away now. You can unmute and ask or type it in the chat window, raise your hand, anything you'd like to do. Lots of thank yous.
Oh, great.
All right, guys, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here, and I'll send out the replay so you can watch this anytime you'd like, and then download that 40 tips for self-care. Guys, thank you so much for growing yourself and your business on a Monday morning, no less. Dr. Elaine, thank you so much for bringing such great info to our little community here.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
My pleasure.